Welcome back to the D9Sports.com EYT Media District 9 live football playoff preview video. Chris Rossetti alongside here with Rich Rhodes. Getting into the Class A bracket, Rich, this is the one that everybody wants to know about. Why don't you go ahead and sort of run down what the bracket is for folks?
Well, top of the bracket, if you want to put the 1-8 seed, it's Coudersport 5-4 at Red Bank Valley, 7-2, the KSAC Small School Division champions. The 4-5 game would be two teams from the AML, and that would be Elk County Catholic. It's 7-2 at the Brockway Rovers. Rovers are 8-2. Other half of the bracket, you have the 2-7 game, which is Port Allegheny 6-4 at Kane 10-0. I've heard that matchup a couple times this year already. And Kerwinsville 7-3 at 6-4 Clarion, the 3-6 game at the bottom of the bracket. Defending champion Kane. Did we think Kane was going to be undefeated going into this year? Looking back, we had some preconceived notions.
We weren't sure exactly if they were going to be able to replace John English at running back or
Lincolnfelder.
Yeah, Lincolnfelder at wide receiver. I mean, not wide receiver, at linebacker. But
right.
It's like they've really built the program in District 9 right now.
Yeah, they are they've kind of cycled through a couple groups of kids, and they're still right where they're at. I mean, they are a strong Class A program right now, and they are the favorites going in just by virtue of what they've done in the AML schedule. The AML had a pretty good South Division season, but we have two Northern Division AML North teams in it this year. There were none in last year, so you could say it's an improved division up there. It took advantage of maybe some KSAC small schools beating up on each other and getting upset. But here we are. We have two KSAC small teams in it and 6 AML teams.
Yeah, let's start with the matchups. You've got the 8-1 game, and even though Red Bank Valley's got 2 losses, they are the 1 seed thanks to the pre-seeding that District 9 does. They'll be hosting a Coudersport team. Now, you want to talk about a surprise in District 9 this year. This Coudersport team won 1 game last year. You talked to first-year head coach Ben Carey. These kids didn't win very much in junior high or JV ball either. So they're really a surprise. And it really started with a win over Ridgeway that broke the long losing streak for the AML North against the AML South back at the end of September there. But this Coudersport team has really come out of nowhere to be in the playoffs.
2 trivia questions. I'll see if you can answer them. What team is the only team in the District 9 playoffs that has more passing yards than rushing yards?
Cowdy.
Right. And has Cowdy ever played Red Bank in the history of either team's program?
No.
You're 2-0.
Wow, that's impressive. I would have thought that Coudersport would have played them at one point in time.
No, they have not, according to our records, and so that'll be nice. Nice to see. I'll have a chance to see that game. I'll be covering that game. It's purple versus red. That's a combination that probably has happened. And red's very prevalent.
Except in this case, it's going to be white versus red because they'll be wearing their white uniforms.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. There'll be purple helmets, right? I think there's purple helmets.
Yeah, there are purple helmets.
Yeah, I mean, the Coudersport is the only team in the district. And think about that. Well, I'm wrong. Du Bois has passes too. Yeah, okay. Du Bois is the only other team that has passed for more than they've rushed. Coudersport, Darren Keglevitz, a senior, 1,100 yards passing, and that's not a lot. So this team doesn't have a lot of yards when you're talking about statistics. They just haven't run the ball very well. Maybe that's how that's really come out. He's the quarterback. He's thrown for 16 touchdowns. Aaron Wolfinger, 325 yards. Those aren't pretty stats. They didn't play last week, so they've only played 9 games. Red Bank, they got a chance to play this past week, no, they didn't. They're both yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. They both only had 9 games.
Last year when Red Bank played a Week 10 game.
But the weird thing is, Coudersport didn't know neither team knew who they were playing, so there's no advantage here.
It is interesting, though, although I will say there is a little bit of advantage. Coudersport did know who they were playing. They didn't know whether they were in or not, Ridge.
That's a good point.
But they knew that if they were in, that they were going to play Red Bank Valley. And so I know, actually, Dustin Kiefer and I asked head coach Ben Carey that on our Advanced Disposal Friday Night Overtime show. And he has been watching Red Bank Valley video all week because they knew that if they were in the playoffs, they had no choice. They were going to play the Red Bank Valley Bulldogs. Red Bank didn't know who. But in Red Bank's case, they did know that if they were going to play a team that they hadn't played already, that it was going to be Coudersport.
Right.
So they would have already had game plans in place for Kerwinsville and for Keystone. Maybe not the exact game plan they wanted, but they would have already had an idea of what those two teams were. So really, in the long run, I don't know if there's a huge advantage there at all. You look at the Red Bank Valley Bulldogs, and Wyatt Hetrick is the guy that comes to mind right away when you're looking at them.
He has been again, I've seen Red Bank as much as anybody, but Wyatt Hetrick's probably the best football player I've seen in person all year. Question is, are they going to use him like they did most of the season? I get a hint that they're not. I mean, last week against Clarion, he carried the ball 24 times. This kid can run over kids and outrace kids. That's what you want in your tailback. Now, they didn't line him up as tailback, but they ran him out of the backfield. And he has over 500 yards receiving and rushing. Last week he had 24 carries. Going into that game he had 32. This is going to be a little different looking offense with him maybe being a little more featured, which is very wise, I think.
No question, and you really have to give it up to Connor Shoemaker.
Absolutely.
Lost the battle for quarterback to Devin Shimp coming into the season. Shimp gets hurt, forcing Shoemaker back into that role at quarterback. He played so well that now Shimp's back and Shoemaker's still the quarterback.
Yeah, and Shimp has taken some reps, had a big catch in the Clarion game at receiver. So they're lining him up as receiver where he's been before anyway. And Connor Shoemaker, you can't give him enough credit actually. 906, he's going to go over 1,000 yards most likely. Quarterback or passing in his first season at quarterback, 16 touchdowns. He's dangerous runner. He's running for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. I like how they roll him out and find those short passes. He throws darts and really it's a good offense, but really it's not. What they end up doing in the playoffs is going to depend largely on what they do defensively. And you look at that Kerwinsville game. They didn't play good defense, and if they don't play good defense, they may struggle against Coudersport. They'll definitely struggle after the first round. And I'm not saying they didn't have a bad. They got to play playoff defense.
Yeah, and the real question for Red Bank Valley is, can they get past some issues in the postseason? It's been a while since they've really
96.
made a lot. I mean, they did get to the district championship game a couple of years ago where they lost to a really good Clarion team there 2 years ago. But for the most part, they've struggled come playoff time. Last year, they got upset at home in a 5-4 game against Brockway. Other years where they just, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked for them in the playoffs. Will it work for them this year in the playoffs is the big question.
I just think it comes down to defense. I mean, they have a decent defense, but it's the playoffs. Now it's time you got to make a stand, and it's got to. I'm guessing they're really leaning on setting the tone this week against the Falcons, which again, it'll be an interesting matchup between two teams that have never played each other.
Yeah, and then you move into the 5-4 game. The winners will play each other between that Red Bank and County game and this game, Elk County Catholic and Brockway. That's at 7 o'clock Friday night at Brockway, as you mentioned. Rematch of a game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, Elk hasn't played since they lost that game to Brockway 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Brockway did have a game against Mercer this past week, which they won fairly easily, I think 25-7.
Right.
So when you look at this, and these two teams are very, very familiar. They just, like I said, Elk's basically been practicing now for Brockway for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think the off week helps the Crusaders. They've had some, they don't have a lot of kids to begin with, only 17 or 18 to begin with. They've had some injuries, and even guys that haven't missed time are, I'm sure, banged up playing all that time. So an off week may have come at the perfect time for them. And could this be one of those rematch games that you see that could flip-flop?
I tell you what, and Elk County, they were 7-0, and then they lost to Kane and Brockway. And as you mentioned, they have a lot. I just think they have a lot of character there, where they have really been, despite maybe some limitations on numbers, the Kerwinsville win, some of the big plays they've made earlier in the season. It'll be very interesting to see which team makes better adjustments. Obviously, Elk has to make more, I guess, right? Because they got beat 35-12. They have to close that gap. It will be interesting to see what the Crusaders pull out and try to do differently, and how Brockway counteracts that. Brockway, very good football team as well. There's no question that this team could win the district title as well, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, when you look at Brockway, they've overcome the loss of Anthony Isabella to a torn ACL, and that was a big loss. This was a kid that was definitely one of the top players in District 9. You lose a kid like that, it took them a couple of weeks to rebound from that and figure out what they were doing. But, man, Hunter Miller at quarterback, seems like there's like a whole lot of Millers, by the way, at quarterback. Bo Miller, Hunter Miller, Matt Miller.
And we haven't screwed it up yet, I don't think.
Hunter Miller at quarterback for Brockway. Mark Latuska has really become a real workhorse. He's a big, bruising running back for them. Maybe the old school type Brockway running backs.
Yeah, he is a physical runner. I've noticed that, and it's just very interesting to see. I like the balance that Brockway has, and even coming into the year, I know you and I were like, okay, maybe Brockway's the preseason favorite. They're not far off that now. They
Well,
really haven't disappointed,
yeah.
despite losing a very good football player to injury. And a guy in the preseason, right? Martino, I believe.
Yeah.
They lost two
Yeah,
really good
they've
football
lost two
players.
very good football players. You know, you look at it, and I think part of it is the way District 9 seeds, and we're not going to get into that too much, but, you know, just the fact that they're the 4th seed, and they're probably not the 4th best team. They're
No.
probably the 2nd or 3rd best team
Yeah.
in the district, and so you look at it, and yet at the same time, this is a tough matchup to have to play Elk County Catholic again.
Yes, I think that's a credit to Elk County Catholic and the coaching that's been going on up there. Brockway's the favorite there at home. They beat him last time, but I don't know if I'd give up too many points. You know, I don't know what the spread is, and if you went that direction, that'd be a tough one to pick. If you talk about that, it's a very interesting. It is an interesting matchup because of just the coaching and the success of both of these programs.
Well, Rich, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will highlight the bottom half of that A bracket. You're watching, too much radio in me. Watching and listening to the D9Sports.com EYT Media Live football, District 9 football playoff preview video.
It can happen anytime, anywhere, when you least expect it. That's why there's Bauer Truck Repair. And when you need to get back on the road and keep the wheels moving, we have the people and the power to get the job done. From 24-hour roadside repairs to towing and recovery services, our professional team is on call 24/7. And whether your truck needs a simple oil change or a complete engine rebuild, Bauer Truck Repair has the technology, the tools, and the team to get you back on the road. Our state-of-the-art facility is second to none to keep up the demand for truck and trailer repairs, plus state and federal inspections, preventative maintenance, and more, all at Bauer Truck Repair, just off I-80 and Route 66 in Shippenville, 814-226-6023, or visit us online at BauerTruckRepair.com.
I'm Clarion.
I'm Clarion.
I'm Clarion.
I'm Clarion too.
And I'm a member.
A member.
A member.
Clarion Federal Credit Union.
And now, even if you're in Venango, Forest, Clarion, or Jefferson counties, you can be a member too. Better than a bank with great rates and feeless checking options. See how membership can really pay off no matter where you are. Only at Clarion Federal Credit Union.
When my family opened up the Carpet Barn back in 1971, Clarion looked a lot different than it does today. Over the past 44 years, we've dedicated ourselves to being your place for not only the best carpet, but also the most reliable service. We've learned that our customers are the most valuable assets we have. And if we continue to offer affordable carpet and dependable service, we can look forward to the next 44 years in the Clarion area. Come visit us today at the Carpet Barn.
There's golf. Then there's Treasure Lake. 2 PGA-rated courses and the ultimate golfing experience, and the most breathtaking and beautifully maintained courses in the region. Always affordable with special offers and amazing discounts. Finally, spectacular golf at an affordable price. Welcome to Treasure Lake. For packages, memberships, video tours, and more, visit our website at treasurelakepoa.com.
Our home, our history, our pride. Year after year, as seasons change and memories are made, one thing will never change. Home is always right here. And when you walk through our doors, we never forget that, because this is our home too. So come on in, have a seat, and welcome home. The Triple R Roadhouse in the Clarion Mall, just off Interstate 80 at exit 62.
Welcome back here at the EYT Media Studios. Chris Rossetti, Rich Rhodes here on the live D9Sports.com EYT Media District 9 football playoff preview video. Time for the bottom half of that A bracket, Rich. And when you start with the 6-3 game, Carwinsville-Clarion, this is another rematch from a playoff game a year ago. Carwinsville gave a heavily favored Clarion team fits for about a half a year ago. Clarion pulled away in the second half, I see this is an interesting game. Clarion's had an interesting season, but we'll start with Carwinsville first. The Tide came out this year. They're throwing the ball a little bit more than they have in the past.
Yeah, and their numbers look really cool. I mean, it's a great stat sheet for the Golden Tide. I mean, sophomore running back Nick Stewart is, that's speak about somebody that seems like he's been around forever. We got to get 2 more years with him, let alone the running back from Clearfield. So he's a sophomore. He ran for 13. He's run for 1373 going into the Blairsville game this past week, and he had 4 more touchdowns in that game. So he has 22 touchdowns, I believe. Jacob Terry, the quarterback, has passed for over 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. And then the receiver, Quamone Newkirk, 11 touchdowns going into Blairsville, 635 yards. That's a lot of balance. And certainly in one of the matchups we saw earlier this year, that Kerwinsville gave Red Bank fits in a lot of that game, but yet they've struggled in the AML South. How good is this Golden Tide team, and how do they match up against Clarion? It's a question.
It really is the question, and you know that they can run the football. And it seems like when the going gets tough, Coach Andy Ivanko still sort of pulls the reins in on Mr. Terry and doesn't like to throw the ball as much when things are really getting tough. And
Which a lot of coaches do.
Yeah, and that's happened a couple of times in those AML games. They've gotten to be close games, and they've sort of gotten away from throwing the ball, which I think then makes them more one-dimensional and easier to defend.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting now. Talk about one-dimensional. Clarion's got to prove they can throw the ball. And they have struggled mightily in that category this year, which is a big factor right now.
Yeah, outside of one game here or 2 games maybe tops, they've really struggled, as you said, to put the ball in the air. And it hasn't all fallen on the senior quarterback, Bo Miller. A lot of that, well, you've seen it, I've seen it, their receivers aren't the best receivers in the world. They drop a lot of passes, do a lot of things like that. Right. To me, though, it still comes down to getting the ball into the hands of Colton Rapp, their sophomore running back. When they get him the ball, they're generally a pretty good football team for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because they're trying to, protect him as a sophomore, if there's been some injury issues or what's going on. They don't get him the ball nearly enough for a talent that he is.
Well, we're going to see if they can change that. I know in the Brookville game he came out, I think I told you I covered the Brookville Clarion game until, when the game was still early, he was getting the ball quite a bit. And then it got out of hand. And of course, you're going to spread the ball around even more. But Rapp is obviously the big key for the Bobcats. There's no question about it. 577 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's better than that. He's talented, and on the turf, that's a dangerous runner, as is a lot of guys. But he's going to be dangerous on turf.
The other guy that's really carried the bulk of the load for them, especially in midseason, was Josh Cribble, and he lines up at wide receiver. But they like a lot of that misdirection, those cross bucks, things like that, right, where they get him the ball a lot as he's coming in motion and. That seems like that's been a staple of Clarion's offense for a while now.
Yeah, and they've been up and down. There's no question about it. They were about as down as we've seen that program in any stretch for a long time, with losses to Montauk and St. Mary's. Now they beat St. Mary's, losses to Union and Montauk, and then they bounced back, beat St. Mary's. Are they up right now? How up are they? Are they better than Kerwinsville at home? This could be a good matchup. It really could. I'm not. It would be. Being Clarion, they have to be pretty confident playing at home against the Tide, I would think.
You would, although once again, with the way that their season's gone,
yeah,
you don't know where the confidence level is right now. Obviously, what Brookville, I sort of rolled over for them on Friday night, so it was hard to tell exactly what happened in that game. And was that mostly Clarion? Was some of that Brookville?
Right.
You go back 2 weeks ago, they looked really good at St. Mary's, and then they came out, they looked good for a half against Red Bank.
And that was an interesting. They did play well against Red Bank in that half. Second half, I give more credit to Red Bank for shutting them down. Clarion couldn't do anything, and where you get they're certainly better off than when they were playing, in their losses against Union and Montauk. There's no question. That could be a good matchup. It really could be a good game. Yeah,
and then when you look at that, the winner of that will play the winner of the Port Allegheny at Kane game. I feel like it's Groundhog Day with this game.
Hey, 27.2% of these team seasons after this week will be played at Kane. This will be the third game between these two teams on that field. The way the quirky thing worked out. I mean, you had both teams win their division. They played during the regular season, so then they had to play again for the AML title, and they just happened to play in the first round. I believe Coudersport and Kerwinsville ran into this a few years ago, where you played 3 teams. We always say this in basketball: hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. Can we apply it to Kane?
Boy, that's a tough one. You look at it, and it was 21-0, and you look at the first score, and it was a lot worse than that.
66-22.
66-22, and yet you look at the stats from last Friday's AML title game, and it really could have been probably a lot worse than 21-0, because it was like 360 yards to like 70 yards. I don't know if Port Allegheny matches up very well here.
Port was minus 11 yards rushing and 11 for 33 passing, so they had no success.
Trey Garzell's going to have to be more accurate in this game if they're going to have any shot at winning it.
Yeah.
And he's been that most of the year. Going into that game, he was over 50% passing. Now he's dropped down to 47.9% passing. Boy, does he have a weapon, though, in Dylan Baumgartner. 492 yards, 8 touchdowns. There, he's also run for 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. Maybe like a poor man's Wyatt Heitrick in a lot of ways, Rich. But the Kane team, they're just so well balanced, so well coached.
They are.
You know, before winning the district title in A last year, remember they were in the Double A championship game 2 years in a row. 3 years ago now, they lost on a last-second touchdown pass by Karn City, where they would have had a Double-A championship and a Single-A championship in a 3-year span there. Todd Silfies has done a wonderful job with that program. They may be the premier program in District 9 Class A right now.
Yeah, they are. They are. But, you know, again, Brockway's not very far behind. I got a chance to watch that game on video. That was an even game. Just to give, you know, just to say that, you know, what's the separation when you pick the whole bracket? You know, the separation between Brockway and King was not much, especially in that game. But back to the Wolves here, since we're on that game. The senior twins, Tyler and Shane Rawlick, they've scored 26 out of the 33 touchdowns the team has done. Shane takes now a lot of snaps at quarterback. You wonder if he and Tyler switched it, if it wouldn't be the same thing. Tyler has 1,500 all-purpose yards going into the Port Allegheny game. He kicks the point after attempts. He has over 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, those two, along with Eric DeLong, they're averaging almost 8-9 yards a carry. It's just a very strong core.
That starts with that offensive line there, and those kids will all tell you that right away every time you talk about it.
Yeah.
And then the defensive side of the football. This is what Kane has built its hallmark on. Yeah. We can talk all we want about the offense, but it's on defense that is the reason that Kane has got a shot at playing in its, what would this be now? Fourth straight District 9 championship game, 2 in Double A. Now it would be 2 in A if they get there this year.
Right.
That defense has been outstanding all season.
Absolutely, yeah. They have played very strong, and it's just the program that it leads us to say that Kane is definitely favored.
And it's interesting. Once again, it's no eye-popping numbers on the defensive side of the ball, but a bunch of guys. And I mean, seriously, you've got like 8 or 9 guys with 30 or more tackles, led by Eric DeLong. Agni Costanzo, Ange Costanzo, both sophomores. Think about that. Their 2 leading tacklers are sophomores, and their 5th leading tackler in Anthony Smith, who's a East Forest kid, is also a sophomore. How good are they? Absolutely. How good are they? How good are they going to be on defense as it continues?
And DeLong's one of the running backs that doesn't carry the ball as much as Rawlix, but he's a sophomore.
In fact, Toby Fox is only a junior, and he's their 4th leading tackler. So of their top 5 tacklers, only Shane Rawlick is a senior in that group. So this is not only a really good defense, it's a really young defense as well. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. Okay, we've broken down the teams. We've broken down the matchups. Who do you see coming out of each of the brackets? We'll start with that Du Bois State College. Is there any way Du Bois beats State College?
No.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's no way Du Bois beats State College. In that AAA, is it Clearfield versus Somerset for the regional championship?
It is Clearfield versus Somerset. Where does it go from there? What's your thoughts?
Boy, that's a tough one, Rich. I don't know. Has Clearfield made up the difference from last year? Is Somerset maybe not quite as good as where it was last year? That's a toss-up to me. Flip a coin, pick it. I don't know. I'm not trying to weasel out of making a prediction here, but I really don't know who's going to come out of that. I think that could be a heck of a football game.
It's just the manner that they beat Clearfield last year that really makes it tough. Did they close the gap? That's the question, and that's going to be the intrigue in AAA if both teams get by. I guess Clearfield shouldn't look by Johnstown based on the scoreboard, based on our scoreboard observations, no question.
And then when you get into Double A, if you put the best players on St. Mary's and the best players on Montauk, do they beat Karn City?
It'd be closer than if one of them took them on. Let's just say that. It would be closer. I can't go any further than that. It would be closer.
But Karn City is prohibitive favorites there in Double A. And then an A. How do you see A fall?
Well, back to double A. The double
Yeah.
A question, as we alluded to before, is how far does Karn City go? Do they get back?
They get
do they get back to the
they
win
get
field?
back to the same place they've been the last couple of years. But I don't see any way that they beat either South Fayette, Aliquippa, whoever comes out of
And
the
we didn't do
Whitfield.
our homework on District 5. Who is that team? I don't even know who they would be playing if they get by. But yeah, that's really going to get to. Class A, it's going to be, I think.
Last year Kane was the 6th seed and they won it. Can
Yeah.
Kerwinsville do it out of it? We had somebody actually send us a PowerPoint presentation last week showing us how Kerwinsville's season almost identically mirrors the season of Kane a year ago. Do you think that there's any shot at that being, getting a lower seed to the championship game again?
I wish I'd have seen that before I answered that question. They might have turned me. No, I think Kerwinsville's going to win the bottom. Kane is going to win. I was convinced I didn't even see the PowerPoint. Kane is going to win the bottom part of that bracket. Clarion-Kerwinsville could be an interesting matchup. Not slighting, Kerwinsville's on the road. I mean the question is the top. What's the top going to be? That Brockway is it going to be Brockway Red Bank in the semis? That's the question. Kane's going to be in the finals.
I think it's going to be a rematch of Kane-Brockway, and that game came down to a blocked field goal.
Oh yeah, that was a really good game. I mean, Kerwinsville.
And that's a rematch of last year's championship game.
Brockway was first in goal, scored tied 14-14, snap over the head, and then they tried a field goal. Kane blocked it and ran it back. 21-14, that was it. So those two teams are even. The question is, can Red Bank prove to themselves maybe, prove to the rest of the district, prove to the AML that they're better than Brockway?
I think
that's a tough one. That's a tough one for Red Bank.
The KSAC was well matched this year, but I don't know how strong it was in the end.
I think you got to give the nod to the AML this year, and I think the Brockway Kane rematch is probably going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. So there it is. That's our thoughts. Sure, you folks will all be sharing your thoughts with us on D9Sports.com as the weeks go on. Now, don't forget you can catch all the action this Friday night. We'll have our final advanced disposal Friday night overtime show on D9Sports.com. Dustin Kiefer and myself will be on at 9:30. You can catch that on D9 Sports, also on radio stations across District 9. Also, we'll have a game of the week that we haven't announced yet. That'll be through exploreClarion. It's game of the week, and then we'll go from there. There'll be a lot of fun, a lot of action. This is the best time of the football season, Rich.
Well, the first week of the playoffs certainly is. This is a big This is kind of the peak of the interest, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. You've got all these teams involved, fan bases from all of them wanting to see how things will go. I sort of like that second round, especially if they can do us if District 9 can figure out a way to get us that Saturday doubleheader of the A semifinals. That's always a lot of fun too.
Absolutely, and the weather again. Everybody wants good weather to get more people out to the games. If not, they're going to follow it along somewhere on their favorite radio station. And I'm obviously going to
or on exploreClarion, which is actually where I would encourage everybody to watch it. Go to exploreClarion, go to D9 Sports. We'll have you covered with everything that you need.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of all of that. So.
Yes. I would never not promote.
Yeah, but folks, thanks for joining us live. I know there were some hiccups as the broadcast went along, but hey, it was our first go at doing a live broadcast. We really appreciate it. If you're watching this on the archive stream, hopefully the archive stream, there weren't quite as many hiccups, but if there were, we apologize for those too. But we're trying to do some things to really increase the coverage of District 9 athletics here at D9Sports.com and in conjunction with the EYT Media Network. And a special thanks to Jake Bauer, who's been behind the camera, working everything for us today with all the great video highlights and things as well. It's only going to grow bigger and better now, folks, as we continue our journey here with D9Sports.com and EYT Media. But thanks for joining us tonight, and go whatever your favorite football team is out there this week. So thanks again, and good night.
Shout out to Andy Close.